Before Gaia, nothing resists. Existence moves, but never collides. Forms may appear, but they never stop each other. Nothing weighs, nothing presses, nothing blocks. And because nothing blocks, nothing truly happens. There are no accidents, no consequences, no damage that lasts. Reality before Gaia is smooth, continuous, forgiving. Then something appears that does not move aside. Not a God with intent, not a ruler with command, not a law that can be broken, but ground, something that does not ask what you are, something that does not adjust, something that does not yield. Once ground exists, movement becomes dangerous, existence becomes conditional, and the universe learns its first refusal. This is Gaia. Not a personality, not a choice, but the first physical limit. Gaia does not say no. She makes no unavoidable. A limit is not a rule. Rules require will. Rules require enforcement. Gaia enforces nothing. She simply exists. And because she exists, movement acquires weight. Presence acquires pressure. Form acquires resistance. For the first time, something cannot pass through something else. This is not symbolic. It is mechanical. Existence now encounters obstruction, not opposition, not hostility, just density. When two forms meet Gaia, they must negotiate space. They must push. They must yield, or they must break. This is the birth of physical consequence, not moral consequence, not punishment, but consequence that happens even when no one is watching, even when no one intends it, even when no one understands why. Before Gaia, weight does not exist. Things appear, but they do not press downward. With Gaia, weight arrives immediately. To exist above ground means to be pulled toward it. To exist on ground means to be held by it. Weight is not an emotion. It is not heaviness in the heart. It is force. It determines how things fall, how they settle, how long they endure before collapsing. Weight creates hierarchy without intention. Above, below. Not because something chooses dominance, but because gravity does not negotiate. This is why Gaia is feared but not hated. You cannot argue with weight. You cannot persuade pressure. You can only respond, and response creates behavior. For the first time, existence must adapt. Not because of threat, but because physics demands it. Gaia introduces resistance. Resistance is not conflict. Conflict requires opposing wills. Resistance exists without desire. It is the refusal of matter to disappear. When something moves across Gaia, energy is lost. Movement slows, motion degrades. This loss is permanent. Resistance creates friction. Friction creates heat. Heat creates transformation. Not metaphorically, physically. This is the first irreversible process in Greek cosmology. Once energy is spent, it does not return. Before Gaia, mistakes dissolve. After Gaia, mistakes remain. This is why Greek myth is unforgiving. Not because gods are cruel, but because the universe now remembers. Resistance records action. In wear, in erosion, in collapse. And memory does not require consciousness. Collision becomes possible only when things cannot pass through each other. Before Gaia, encounters leave no mark. After Gaia, impact reshapes form. Collision is not violence. Violence requires intent. Collision is structure. When two entities meet at speed, something must change. Direction, shape, integrity. Sometimes both survive. Sometimes one breaks. Gaia does not decide. She provides a condition. This is why later wars are not born from hatred. They are born from inevitability, when multiple forms occupy the same ground. Paths intersect, pressure accumulates, and collision becomes unavoidable. This is not moral failure. It is spatial consequence. And Greek myth understands this deeply. With Gaia, space is no longer empty. Space becomes occupied, measured, contested. To exist somewhere now excludes something else. This is crucial. Existence becomes competitive, not because beings desire dominance, but because ground is finite. Gaia does not encourage struggle. She removes the possibility of infinite coexistence. This is the origin of territorial instinct, of boundary, of domain. Not as idea, but as necessities. If something stands here, something else cannot. This simple fact shapes every future conflict. Not immediately, not consciously, but structurally. The universe now contains limitation, and limitation creates tension, even before emotion exists. Gaia does not sculpt beings. She does not design bodies. Forms already emerge from chaos. What Gaia does is far more severe. She forces forms to deal with consequence. A fragile form collapses under weight. A rigid form cracks under pressure. A moving form erodes under friction. Survival is no longer automatic. Existence must now be compatible with reality. This is selection before intention. Adaptation before thought. Gaia does not choose who lasts. She creates a condition where lasting must be earned.
Forms operate under shared ground conditions.
And nothing can opt out. Not gods, not titans.
A primordial cosmic
To exist is to obey structure. Even rebellion happens on ground, never above it. No one prays to Gaia for mercy. Mercy requires choice. Gaia does not choose. She does not listen. She does not respond. She does not forgive collapse, and yet everything depends on her. Without Gaia, nothing holds. Nothing endures. Nothing accumulates meaning. She is the silent requirement beneath every story. This is why Gaia is ancient but not central, present but not commanding. She does not rule the universe. She supports it. And support does not inspire devotion. It inspires reliance. Reliance without intimacy, dependence without dialogue. This asymmetry defines Greek myth's tension. Power floats, ground remains. To exist on ground is to be vulnerable. You can fall. You can be crushed. You can be buried. Before Gaia, nothing traps. After Gaia, enclosure becomes real. Caves, chasms, depth, containment is born. This is not yet Tartarus, but the logic begins here. If ground can hold, it can also confine. Gaia introduces the possibility that something cannot escape, not because of punishment, but because of geometry. Once vulnerability exists, fear follows naturally. Even before consciousness forms. Fear is not emotional here. It is informational. It is awareness of irreversible outcome. And this awareness will shape every god to come. The gods do not create Gaia. They emerge upon her. They stand on her. They fight on her. They fall against her. Their power operates above ground, never beyond it. This is why gods are strong but never secure. They can command forces, but cannot remove limitation. They can rule, but cannot erase gravity. This quiet dependence explains divine anxiety. Power without foundation is unstable, and foundation is never obedient. Gaia does not rebel. She does not submit. She simply persists. Persistence is the most terrifying force in Greek myth. Because persistence does not care who you are. Before Gaia, damage fades. After Gaia, damage accumulates. This changes everything. History becomes possible. Scars matter. Ruins matter. Burial matters. Time now leaves marks. This is the birth of irreversibility. And irreversibility creates seriousness. Actions matter not because they are judged, but because they cannot be undone. Greek myth is tragic not because characters suffer, but because consequence does not reset. Gaia is the reason memory exists in matter. Stone remembers pressure. Earth remembers weight. And what matter remembers? Beings must endure. Gaia does not punish evil. She does not reward good. A virtuous being can fall. A cruel being can stand. This neutrality is absolute. Greek myth never treats reality as fair. It treats it as consistent. Consistency is more important than justice. Because consistency can be learned. Justice requires agreement. Gaia offers predictability without compassion. This is why Greek gods are anxious. They live in a world that does not care about intention. Only outcome, only structure, only response. And response is limited by physics, not by desire. With ground, hierarchy emerges, above, below. Not socially, physically, things fall downward. Pressure increases with depth. This gradient creates a symmetry. Some positions are safer, some are more dangerous. This is the root of stratification in myth. Not moral hierarchy, spatial hierarchy. Later this will become Olympus and below, but the logic begins here. Once depth exists, power seeks elevation, and fear seeks containment. Gaia does not assign roles. She provides slope, and slope organizes existence automatically. Gaia does not create conflict. She removes its impossibility. When forms persist, they collide. When they collide, something must yield. Yielding is not failure, it is consequence. Greek myth does not blame struggle, it explains it. Conflict is not born from malice. It is born from endurance. Things that last encounter each other again and again, and repeated contact generates friction. Friction generates heat. Heat generates change. This is not tragedy, this is physics. And physics does not apologize. Freedom before Gaia is infinite but meaningless. Freedom after Gaia is limited but real. Choice matters only when consequence exists. Without ground, movement has no cost. With ground, every step commits. This is the paradox of Gaia. She restricts, and in doing so, creates significance. An action matters because it excludes alternatives. To stand here means not standing elsewhere. This is the beginning of decision, not conscious decision, but structural commitment. And commitment is the foundation of narrative. Without Gaia, there is no story. Gaia does not add chaos, she stabilizes it. By slowing motion, by absorbing impact, by holding form. This stability allows accumulation. Mountains, layers, sediment. History becomes stacked, not erased. This layered world is dangerous, but understandable. Understanding emerges not from meaning, but from pattern. Gaia makes pattern visible, and pattern invites interpretation. This is why myth begins here. Not with gods, but with ground. Gaia prepares the universe for containment, for depth, for imprisonment. If something can be held, it can be buried. If it can be buried, it can be forgotten. This logic will soon deepen. Ground becomes depth. Depth becomes below, and below will become something far more absolute. Gaia does not create that place, but she makes it possible. She lays the surface upon which descent becomes meaningful. And descent is coming, inevitably. Gaia establishes surface, but surface implies beneath. Once ground exists, depth becomes unavoidable. What lies below ground is not chosen. It is required by structure. Pressure demands release, mass demands displacement. And the universe answers with depth. Not metaphorical depth, not emotional depth, but absolute depth. A place where falling does not stop. Gaia does not rule that place. She makes it necessary. In the next episode, we descend. Not into hell, not into punishment, but into the deepest structural truth of Greek cosmology. The place where consequence has no bottom.